Yep. Okay. Any real life examples that you can share? I know you touched on a couple, but any more?
Yeah, can we get the next one? Yeah, so good. When you asked me to prepare for this is some of our data too, and I'll share it with you, but it's really common across the industry. This is an example of all the use cases that we're seeing for intelligent virtual agents in the healthcare space. So I don't know, is anybody from healthcare here? Okay, great. So, healthcare is a pretty broad area, between like health systems or healthcare payers, but there's some commonality on a lot of the use cases, right? So call steering is that natural language ability that you brought up about, hey, can I, finding out where they want to go, getting them the first time and having this dialogue, having an agent, like a digital agent handle that through natural language. So that's big, right? And the reason we see it because patient care is like numero uno on people's minds, right? Making sure that that's handled as best as possible. That's really a big focal point. And also cost, right? Fundamentally. So an ID and authentication, it goes without saying, has to be HIPAA oriented, has to be taken care of. Like that information is very valuable. That security has to be in place. And for most healthcare applications, depending on how deep they go for the use case, authentication is a big deal. And then you're seeing everything from, depending on the organization, appointment scheduling, prescription refills, frequently asked questions. Again, very common use cases being done in this area. And it's just opening up too, because we were having a discussion earlier. One of the things that's limited these automation opportunities in the case of healthcare has been, if they've had an EHR like a Epic or Cerner back end electronic health record system, those software organizations have historically been very closed to third-party applications or everything else. It's much like we were talking about banking. They're opening up. Their APIs are becoming available. It's been like, and it's being driven by the market and these kind of services. Because the only way to do these type of kind of AI services is to have that kind of integration capability, right? And so you're going to see that become easier and easier as we go forward. And these are the typical use cases. The results I'll bring up, it's like I'll bring up for a payer of ours. A payer is like a Blue Cross Blue Shield or a Aetna. We have been able to reduce, like for instance, or improve their authentication rates. These guys have always had self-service applications, IVR systems forever, because they deal with millions of calls, a year, millions and millions. And just to authenticate their customers, they challenge with these, IVR applications. Maybe you get 40%, 50% containment. Conversational AI applications, 70, 80%. So it's not 100, but it's that much of an improvement. In just that specific use case was such a big difference in most every application we do, right? So just that specific there, and beyond the other use cases of finding out about their benefit statement, or are they on Medicaid or Medicare, and what kind of services you can do and so forth. So you could do an enrollment even on there that you couldn't do on an IVR application, just too long, too challenging. And so it's a big breakthrough. Yeah.
What are you seeing in terms of AI getting better at understanding accents?
Oh, good, great question. It's getting, I'm going to say, it's getting better every year. It's still not 100%, right? But I think, for instance, the model you'll find transcription, ASR or advanced speech recognition is the kind of the beginning part of that. And that is, in a best-in-class model, probably about 85%. Okay, and sometimes you get better. So that's kind of leads the discussion, but the natural language behind it uses not only content, but context. So to understand the dialogue going by it, so that enhances the understanding of these things. And so, and these AI models are getting so much better. Now they can do, like our systems can do over 140 languages and accents. And so what we don't see is like the Googles of this world and some other specialty guys like DeepGram, these are specialty ASR guys, they are making these systems better and better every day. So the more data they have going through it, the better the improvements. So we've been seeing improvements year over year, because that 85 3 years ago was like 60%. Okay.
I have to tell you, depending on the systems, it's not that good. I'm an immigrant. My parents are born with very, very strong accents, and I have to make calls to my mom because she will not go to her phone. She says she doesn't understand. She doesn't understand, first of all, and it's not Spanish, so there's no option. And then when she's terrified of the automated agent asking questions, that she will say something and then God knows where she won't be corrected. It's still not awesome.
It is right, but here's like when I design a system like that, I think that if you're, the data could show you how often this happens, and if it becomes a relevant point, design your system so that they go right to an agent right away. Don't let that person wait. It'll understand. If it doesn't understand it, you can set it up so it doesn't understand the first time. Get it to an agent. Get that person, because you'll handle the next one who understands 100% or 90% or 100%. And there's yes, and they're getting better at that. So the design is also really an important part of it. So again, these are ways to circumvent that. Let me go to the next one. I'll just it's interesting. Again, I want to bring this up. Banking and credit unions are just been a big area of growth, and I think things continue to be in probably the next 2 to 5 years in this area. Big users of automation. Probably one of the biggest users of automation in contact centers and communications for the last decade. They were doing phone banking 20 years ago, right? Major upgrades in the experience of using these systems by having it more conversational and over the digital channels. Really, I think relevant. It's a competitive space. People are going to expect it. So, and the security can be enhanced. So, voice biometrics or some type of other enhanced multiple security levels that you can implement in these systems, and making it so more subtle and less frictionless is really the goal in these applications. So, again, even more sophisticated applications that you weren't being able to do before, you can, and again, it's becoming easier and easier to implement.
Mm-hmm. So these are great service solutions for contact centers and banking, right?
Yeah.
What I would ask is, and I know the authentication up there is, of course, the need for fraud prevention. Talk a little bit about biometrics and what is being developed there. Is there development on fraud prevention through speech analytics? Oh
yeah. Well, the biggest area, here's the challenge with generative AI. They've also introduced these bad actors that are using it to create these synthesized voices, right? So, the game there is really the AI providers have to continuously be better, so that the organizations that we work with are constantly doing the research and analysis to understand what a synthesized voice is versus a human voice. And there's prevention options and techniques that they can do to listen to background and understanding there, or if it's too consistent and clean, it also kind of sets off a red flag that it should be a synthesized voice. Or there's a lot of different protocols that are being done there. So the enhancements, even though we're hearing these things in the news that, a couple of these may have gotten through to these types of systems, they're really also, what you don't hear is all the research being done by these organizations to make sure that it's not that doesn't happen again, right? And so, like I know of, like for instance, the voice biometrics and their AI companies that we work with, they're literally, every time 11 Labs is like one of these guys that are coming up with these voice synthesis organizations. Every time one of those guys come up, they can actually model they have like a fingerprint basically of how they do their synthesis that can be embedded into the technology so that anybody who tries to use that tool will be taken out. And that's how they're combating it. But it is a race, it's like who's going to be better at it. But I think that when they're and you're probably going to see even more emphasis on the security side as you go forward.
I guess the other interesting is that account opening, you're asking the customer, hey, speak into here for now. And so that way we have a good understanding of your voice. And so that way we use that going forward when we are, it's just an interesting new journey, I guess, if you will, for the customer.
Yeah, I know enough about voice biometrics too to say that I think that even though we hear about this in the news, in reality, it takes about 30 seconds or more, minimum of 30 seconds of somebody speaking to capture a voice print that you could even think about using for that kind of like fraud activity, and it has to be a clean response. So like when you think about I think there's a scare out there. Hey, somebody calls me on the phone and they ask me a few questions and they're going to replicate my voice. No, it doesn't really work that way. The technology, at least at this stage, is not that advanced that it can do that. And so that's another part. And then the systems that'll be designed, if I were designing it, would be like do these passive approaches where you're capturing a longer cadence of voice, and that could trigger like a risk. And you can do that now with these systems. So it's able to understand the dialogue as they're going through the experience in order to flag any fraud that may come up. And that's, you're going to see more and more of that as we go through these implementations versus the traditional voice biometrics that were being done in the past.
Great question. Yeah.
Hey, really great point. Yeah. In the digital channels, you can literally do, like if somebody's doing chat, you can literally translate it to another language, right? So if somebody's speaking in French in chat to the agent, it'll come back in English. That's something that's being done right now. On the voice side of it, I think it's going to get there. There's AI already out there that does instant voice translations, but it's not being implemented yet in contact centers in that way. I think that will come. That'll be one of the use cases in the future, and that's what a large language model, I think, or generative AI I was talking about, is really good at, translation. But it's not at the commercial level yet at that point. But there are companies that are working on that. So obviously for travel and everything, and I see that as like forthcoming in the next few years to be available in the contact centers.
Great. Yeah, go ahead.
These are random questions.
Oh, sure.
With some of the are there applications for this at home service? And this is not by the way, pure curiosity. Like 911 center. Someone called 911. I was in a car accident, and then based on you saying, based on you saying you're in a car accident, asks the probing questions. Is the car in violation of blah blah blah, and then on the dispatches the police or something.
So is it capable of doing that? Yes. Are we recommending 911 systems? No. So I think when you have we do a lot of applications for like the AAA kind of organizations out there that can do some automation on the front end, gather information. If it's kind of health related, we try to stay away from anything that's like emergency oriented for this kind of use case right now. At least we wouldn't recommend it until it becomes 100%. That has to be 100% bulletproof. I mean that at that point, it's not great. But but like for non-emergency applications, we do like a lot of medical transport. Right? You have medical transport that's emergency oriented, right? For ambulatory kind of things, and then you have non-ambulatory. We do a ton of the non-ambulatory. So everybody who's getting picked up in the industry to get rides to different doctors and everything else, that's being automated right now. Mm-hmm. Keep the ambulatory ones that are, hey, I need a what's called again a paramedic here, or at this that should go to a live agent. We, at least right now in this industry, and that's how we kind of distinguish the points. But it can be very sophisticated and do the application to understand. It's just that we wouldn't recommend it for something that has to be 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can say too, Wilmac, one of our practice groups is with public safety, so we work with a lot of 911 centers. A lot of them are very tentative to get the more upgraded, new and improved type technology. We have had a police service come to us and inquire about IVAs purely for non-emergency. So they obviously separate those out. So yeah, good points. And great question. Okay. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
Right.
Yeah, but then the question is like, how do you discern between non-emergency and then? Yeah, right. I was going to say, Jamie, you got that. Yeah, right. Okay.